Hall. Today I'm going to expand on what we learnt in video number 7, which was all about intervals. In video 7 we learnt about the intervals of the major scale. Today we're going to add minor intervals, diminished intervals, augmented intervals, compound intervals, and I'm going to talk you through how to tackle an interval question in a theory exam. We'll start with some revision. This is C major scale. Now if two instruments or two singers sing the same note, the C, exactly the same note, we call it a perfect unison. If you can hear a C and a D, that's a major second. C and E, that's a major third, etc. up the scale. Now the unison, fourth, fifth and octave are perfect intervals. We call them that because they're closely related on the cycle of fifths. They're the intervals that stay the same whether you're doing major scales or minor scales. They're the intervals that we tune violins and guitars and double basses to. The perfect fifth and the perfect fourth can be tuned really nicely. The other intervals vary a bit more. Now, take a look at this slide. This is D major scale. I've included the F sharp and the C sharp because it's a major scale, so these intervals are major. D to F sharp is a major third because it tallies with the key signature of D. So it's very difficult to work out intervals unless you're very familiar with your major scales and major key signatures. We'll take that third, D to F sharp, that's a major third. D to F, on the other hand, is a slightly smaller interval. I call it a minor third. D to F flat is a diminished third. Now of course on the piano, F flat is the same note as E. D to E is a major second, but if you spell it like this, D to F flat, you've got a diminished third. And this one here, D to F double sharp, we've stretched the interval, we've got an augmented third. So if you have a major interval and you shrink it, it becomes minor, shrink it again, it becomes diminished. Stretch it, it becomes augmented. Now here's a perfect fifth in the key of E flat major. E flat major has a B flat in it, so this is a perfect fifth. It tallies with the scale. If I stretch that interval by having a B natural at the top, I have an augmented fifth. If I shrink the interval, I have a diminished fifth. There's no minor variant. So here's the chart for perfect intervals. Your perfect intervals can be stretched or shrunk. And here's the full table. Major intervals, which are 2, 3, 6 and 7, can be stretched or shrunk to minor or shrunk again. Perfect intervals, 1, 4, 5, 8, go up to augmented or straight down to diminished. Now, take a look at this interval. It's a middle C and a top F, more than an octave. Now, we could count all the numbers and we'd discover that we've got an 11th. But we might be a little unsure whether that's major or perfect. So it's sometimes easier to say, okay, we've got an octave and a fourth. C to F is a fourth, and we've got an octave. So this interval has two names. It can be a perfect 11th or a compound perfect fourth. In a theory exam, I'd recommend you say compound perfect fourth, because then you'll be sure that it's perfect, not major. However, when I'm chatting to other musicians, I tend to talk about ninths and 11ths and 13ths, particularly in a jazz context. So this has two names, 11th and compound fourth. Now, here's a contextual example. So you're in a theory exam, you've been given this question, and the question is, name the interval under the bracketed notes. The first step is to name the notes. Now, the first note, the lower one, is an A, but I'll just check the key signature, it's actually an A flat. That's an A flat. The second note is an F sharp. So you do need to check the key signature. But after this stage, forget that key signature. We're looking at A flat to F sharp, out of context. That has the same interval name regardless of what the key signature is. A flat to F sharp is a definite interval, and we're going to be thinking in the key of A flat. So here's the cycle of fifths diagram. Here's A flat major. A flat major has 4 flats in it. So I know my interval has to be A flat to F sharp. I know about A flat major scale. I'm going to scribble out A flat major scale, either in writing or on the stave. The 6th note of A flat major scale is F. So A flat up to F is a major 6th. Now that I know that, I can tell you that A flat up to F sharp is an augmented 6th. So that's the process. You work out the 2 notes, you think in the key of the lower note, you work out what the perfect or major interval would be, and then you compare that to the interval that you've got. Okay, so it's quite a lot of steps in that process, but it works in every key and in every context. And there are a few more examples in the book.
At the piano, learn to recognise each of these intervals orally as well as on the page. Start by memorising the sounds of the 3rd and the 5th. Then add a new interval each day.
There are some more examples of intervals in chapter 22 of this book, There's More to Playing the Piano, by David Hall. Now, just as important as being able to identify intervals from the page is being able to identify intervals when you hear them, identifying intervals by ear or orally. Today we'll start with the 3rd. Now a 3rd is when I play note number 1 and note number 3. 1, 2, 3, 3rd. Now if I move that 3rd around, constantly keeping a distance of a 3rd between my fingers, it sounds nice. The 3rd is a nice sound. We'll focus on the major 3rd today, C to E. If you know the song, oh when the saints, oh when the saints, oh when the saints go marching, oh when, it starts with that 3rd. Oh when, so I can play any note, oh when, there's my major 3rd. Oh when. Of course, arpeggios start with a major 3rd as well. So you've heard that sound before. I'd recommend you spend some time today memorising that sound. Play any note on the piano and see if you can sing the major 3rd above it. Do, do, do. Major 3rd. Tomorrow, learn the 5th, the perfect 5th. That's the other note from the arpeggio. 1, 3, 5. To get there straight away, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is a 5th. Twinkle Twinkle. Other contexts where you may have heard the 5th, when you hear a bugler playing the last post. That starts with a 5th. Or tuning up violin strings. Or cello strings. They're all 5ths. So get to know that sound really well. Practice playing a random note and sing Twinkle Twinkle. Twinkle Twinkle. That's a perfect 5th. Now don't hurry, don't try to learn all 12 intervals today because you might well get in a muddle. In fact, there are only 12 intervals to learn, so make this a 12-week project, or even a 12-month project. Let's say 12 weeks. So you spend the whole week, this week, singing 3rds, major 3rds at the piano, and then gradually expand that repertoire of intervals that you can sing. And when you're really good at this, you will be a much more useful musician. It will be excellent if you sing in a choir. If you can read intervals from the page and you can make them and hear them in your head, your sight reading and sight singing will improve no end. When you're playing music from the piano, if you can hear those intervals before you play them, so you see the music, you can hear how it's meant to go, you're bound to play it better when you're sight reading. So having a really good understanding of the theory of intervals and developing the aural ability to hear them and recreate them really is the key to being able to play music really well.